Recently, I made 3 videos covering the Monster Hunter World Randomizer. This mod makes it so that everything in the game is random. Every quest has a random monster, a random location, every weapon has random stats, random elements, the shops are random, as well as skills on armor sets. That being said, this video is a compilation of the entirety of the game. As I said, I made 3 videos recently about that mod. And here they are back to back, so you have the entire game of the randomizer combined. And before we start, please subscribe to the channel. Only about 1.3% of the people who watch my videos actually are, so I'd really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's start with the video. First up, I created a new character and just changed his hairstyle because he just basically looks like me. Of course, called him IGNIS, created my Palico and called him Red, and started up the game. For those who never played Monster Hunter World, the tutorial is very long and very excruciating. It's boring and you can't skip cutscenes. However, we eventually make it through to the ancient forest. We quickly move through, but there's a small problem. At a certain point of the tutorial, you have to hide from a group of Jagras. Well, I did, and nothing happened. I feared that I was already soft-locked, so I had to restart the game. Went there again, and again the Jagras wouldn't leave. So I closed the game yet again and rebooted the randomizer, and then it worked and I could finally finish the tutorial. The first mission is nothing special. You just pick up a weapon and go fight the Jagras that harassed you in the previous one. And after that first mission, we were actually able to do our first weapon upgrade. We found a 180 ice, 528 damage Jagras Greatsword. The sharpness was only slightly green, which isn't that overwhelming, but the damage is really good. Another thing we were able to craft was a new helmet, which would increase the sharpness of the weapon as it had handicraft as ability on it. So we went and started up the second mission, where we finally would encounter our first randomized monster. So we rush through the beginning of the mission and we see a great Jagras. Well, that's the monster you will encounter here anyway, so yeah, maybe it's not randomized. Just go around the corner here and okay, yes, it has been randomized into one of the strongest monsters in the base game, the Diablos. Which I've got to admit wasn't that big of a deal since we had our new weapon, which was really strong at that point. Also, the Diablos doesn't seem to have any major threats when it comes to elements, so we are pretty much fine here. Nonetheless, just his moveset makes up for a somewhat hard fight. But after not really too long, the Diablos goes down. Our next target is a Kulu-Yaku, which inhabits a camp we want to set up. And I've tried the randomizer before. This point never seems to be randomized, so I think the Kulu-Yaku here is kind of set and can't be changed. Nothing much to say about the fight. One of the easiest monsters in the game, one of the weakest ones as well. It goes down really fast and really easily due to our extremely strong weapon. But the easy life would change soon enough, as there are some really broken mechanics in this randomizer which would make some fights really hard. For example, there is a chance that the Elder Dragons are randomized into just normal missions. So of course, in our third mission, we encounter a Kirin, a lightning bolt throwing unicorn which is known for its speed but also its toughness. Well, the fight went something like that. Yeah, it was really easy. The speed and the toughness of the Korean didn't come into play at all. My theory on that is that in low rank there isn't a quest for this monster, so I guess it has been scaled down so much that it's just really weak when encountered in low rank. Also, our very overpowered weapon at this point plays a very huge role. However, the next mission would be basically a cargo transport mission, where we had to protect a carriage with researchers. And there again is a hard-coded monster which wouldn't change through the randomizer, the Rathian. And this is the first point in this playthrough where it gets really hard. See, the Rathian has a hitbox when it's moving. Any movement, be it an attack or just turning around, has a small gust of wind, which is a hitbox. Of course, this hitbox was randomized with a certain element type. And unfortunately, it was fire damage, which means every time the Rathian would move and we'd be somewhat close to him, we'd get a small chunk of damage. Not much, but it added up really fast, and if you'd get hit from a normal attack of this monster, you'd go down really fast. Luckily, we don't have to kill it here. After a couple of minutes, we can just move on and follow the researchers to get to the real objective of the quest. When arriving there, we are faced with another monster. And there's something really funny happening here. The animations when the monsters are first introduced are made with the models that you encounter in-game. So if there's another monster, the model will be switched with that monster. This doesn't work at all. In this first example, you'll see that both the original monster and the monster we face now are kind of merged into one another. And in the end, you'll see it's only the Gyarotodus, and it's kind of stretched and hovering above the ground. This is what will happen most times when the monsters just will get kind of distorted, and if they have wings where there shouldn't be, the wings will T-pose, stuff like that. Sometimes if the models are too different, the monsters will just be invisible in the cutscenes, which will soon lead to a very funny moment. However, people who did play Monster Hunter World know that this monster is a cakewalk. Even with a weapon that is not that strong, this monster is just really easy to kill. It doesn't have that much HP, it's slow, it falls over really fast. One of the easiest encounters in the game. But I have to say, it lasted longer than I expected. It even drained my entire green sharpness, which I thought was very interesting. As I said, lasted much longer than I'd expected it. However, it would go down fairly quickly, and we'll get into the next mission, where we meet our first invisible force terrorizing a cutscene. And interestingly enough, it was another Diabolos who straight up charged at me as soon as the cutscene ended. I didn't have time to react at all, and I didn't see which monster it was, so I just got battered in the head for absolutely out of left field. However, as before, this fight was pretty easy with the weapon we had. The Diabolos yet again went down fairly easily, and we'd move on to the next mission. And this is where I found a little trick. You can actually see which monster you'll face from the randomizer when there is a portrait of the monster when accepting the quest. The name and the title of the quest will be wrong, but as I said, the portrait will be the monster that you'll face. So in this quest, where you'll normally fight the Tobi Kadachi, it was a Radoban. And if you know the game, you know the introduction cutscene of the Tobi is that he jumps between some trees. And I really wanted to see the Radoban jump between trees because this monster is huge and very clunky. Sadly, of course, the monster was just invisible as their models are so different. However, Radoban, one of the easiest monsters in the game as well. It can flick itself over so easily, you just shoot it with 2 of your slingshot bullets while it's rolling around, which gives you easy access to 3 damage windows. So even if I had the weakest weapon in the game, this fight would be an absolute cakewalk. Also, it's fairly easily to notice that the Radoban isn't made for this terrain, as it can't really land its rolling attacks because the area we are in is so narrow. So again, a very easy fight. Another really easy hunt should follow in the form of the Barroth. Very easy fight, he's not durable, he doesn't deal damage, he's slow. The only thing annoying was this big gyros. Sometimes he would knock me out of my combos, which is not a big deal, but it's still very annoying. In the end, the Barroth went down very easily. The next fight can barely be called one. We had some really easy encounters, but never a boring one. But this, every time I have to do it, I just sigh. It's the most boring mission out there. The first encounter with the Zora Magdaros. You just sit there and wait, basically. You load some cannons, shoot some arrows, whatever. It doesn't do much, you basically don't do anything. And it's even worse than the normal Zora Magdaros fight, as you don't really get any loot from this mission. So let's just say I passed the mission, but I really didn't want to. Doing so had one upside though. I was able to gather the materials to acquire a new weapon upgrade. We were now equipped with a 120 water 672 greatsword, which is a big improvement over our about 500 damage greatsword from before. After the so-called fight against the Zora, you will firstly go to the Coral Highlands. There you'll have to defeat a Tsitsi Yaku, which is just another version basically of the Kulu Yaku. Though it's not a bird, it's a lizard, and it can blind you with his, like, head pieces, I don't know how to call them. But he, as well as his distant cousin, is just a very easy fight. The reason why I mentioned this specifically is because I've slain another monster here. When you enter this level, or mission rather, you find a Legiana. This monster will always be here. It's another one of these cases where it will be the same monster even though you have a randomizer. This is because this Legiana will interfere with you before the next mission. It will kind of annoy you and stuff like that. I wanted to see if you slay it here, if it will appear in the next cutscene. And it didn't, because the next cutscene was the wrong one. It was the next mission after the next mission. And the answer is yes, it did appear. But, you know, free materials, I take it. When it comes to the next 3 assignments, I won't go into much detail. The first 2 were just 2 more Radobans. So almost back to back, 3. 3 of the same monster. That in this animation, the Poalum was switched up with the model of the Radoban. So we had a Radoban beautifully flying through the air. And I loved it. It looked really funny. Anyways, I don't know if I should call myself lucky or not, but this was just a cakewalk again. Also, did you notice this reference when playing Monster Hunter World?
Huh? It's you two.
Have we met?
Sorry, I forgot. You were out cold when I found you.
One Piece.
Can we get much higher?
However, the third one was a Kulu Yaku. Also had it before. As I said, absolutely easy. But then, when I thought this mod was just way too easy, I encountered such a strong enemy in the form of a Rathalos. This menacing red dragon in itself is in the base game pretty much respectable. It's a strong opponent and a noteworthy fight. He's able to apply poison, he's fast, he can fly, he is able to apply fire damage as well. But here, in this randomizer, there was a problem. This monster, just like its female counterpart, had the ability to basically have an aura of damage around him. But here it was even worse. He didn't even have to move for me to get the damage dealt from this ability. Also, the damage was much more than before. Not only that, but it applied the status effect of the Dragon Pest, which negates all elemental damage dealt by the player. So my damage output was lowered, and anytime I'd get near the monster, my life would just be drained like that. Luckily, and by sheer coincidence, I equipped the health booster before starting up this mission. So as long as I would stay inside the health booster while fighting, the damage would kind of be balanced out. Though if I was to receive a hit from the monster, I'd still be in huge danger. Lucky for me, in the beginning, I was able to cut off the Rathalos' tail, so it wouldn't be able to apply poison with that at least. After some very close near-death experiences and a lot of health boosts, I finally managed to defeat this absolutely menacing monster.
You okay, partner? I'm waiting for you back at camp.
Not quite as menacing, but pretty much even harder was the next fight I picked. It was an optional quest against the lizard and 2 floofballs. Well, the assignment was to only kill the Tsitsi, but as I said, 2 floofballs in the form of Poalum were added into the arena. So I had to face 3 monsters at the same time. And of course, all 3 of them are kind of weak in itself, but there was a big problem. The same effect as the Rathalos had was applied to the Poalum, and there were 2 of them. So while dealing with my objective, the Tsitsi, I would be harassed by 2 Poalum who just had to be near me to basically take me out. And so they did. The first 2 feints in this run came from this mission. And funny enough, it was optional, just so I can pump up my sword a bit more. In the end, this mission was just a question of endurance. I gave it everything I got, almost ran out of mega potions, but in the end managed to finish off the Tsitsi and leave the mission with the materials needed for my new weapon. This new weapon packed a punch. 912 damage. No element, but it didn't matter. 912 damage was just way too much to pass on. It even had blue sharpness. Nice improvement over our formerly green one. I was very excited to put that new weapon to a test, so I hopped on into the next mission where we'd had to hunt a Rathalos, which was switched with a Great Jagras. And again, we had a beautiful cutscene where the Great Jagras would hover through the air like a fairy. Anyways, I show you the entire fight against that monster here because I think it's less than a minute. This new weapon is a monster. In the end, it was pretty funny, because defeating the Great Jagras didn't even complete the assignment, so I just left and started up the new quest, which was a quest to hunt a Great Gyros. So I went and looked for it. Turns out it was under the map, and I couldn't reach it. But I found a Tobi Kadachi and slapped it around a bit. Very fast fight as well. As I said, new weapon is just ridiculously strong right now. I then restarted the mission and found the Great Gyros, and also about him, not much to say. Very fast fight with that new weapon that is even more broken. I think you can imagine it. The next monster was again just a Gyratodes. No special abilities, not strong, not durable, not fast. Easy fight, it was over really quickly. But now, it was time for the boss battle that would conclude the first stage of Monster Hunter World. The real fight against the Zora Magdaros. It's pretty much the same as the first encounter. Though, of course, you get the materials, which kind of motivates me a bit more. And you can kind of fight the Nergigante for real this time. Not long, but for real. And this fight made it so much more interesting. Because, and I kid you not, the Nergigante had the same effect as the Poalum and the Rathalos had. So it had this damage aura that would apply dragon status effect. I mean, okay, we don't have an element on our weapon anymore, but still, the damage was insane. And, of course, the Nergigante is just way stronger than all the monsters we've encountered so far. So to say he beat my butt is an absolute understatement. I didn't faint, because he decided to retreat really fast, but I sure as hell wouldn't be able to defeat him right now. Anyways, after he left, the fight was basically just like before. Load some cannons, shoot some bolts, and eventually defeat the Zora Magdaros. The only thing I can say about it in the end is that this fight didn't pass quickly. But still, I think it was faster than the first encounter. Oh yeah, and I fainted against the Zora. Yeah. That's kind of embarrassing, but, you know, whatever. After defeating the Zora Magdaros, our next task is it to find some clues and hints to a specific monster. The first thing that happens is that we meet a Poke that is way stronger than the ones we met before. The fight itself wasn't an issue, it just dealt a lot more damage than it did before. With one attack actually halved my life bar when I was buffed due to eating. At this point, of course, better armor comes into play, but I thought it would be fine and we could just move on and do some optional quests to get the hints that we need to progress the story. Anyways, I was very wrong. The first optional quest I tried was to hunt a Great Gyros in an arena. Great Gyros is a very easy monster, and even when it deals more damage, it shouldn't be a big threat. Anyways, the monster wasn't alone in the arena, which is not typical for this game. Basically only the monsters you have an assignment for should appear in the arena. In the randomizer it seems that there are always 3 monsters in the arena. Anyways, there was a Belroth and another Poke. And by themselves, all of these monsters are pretty easy to kill, but 3-on-1 is very hard. I managed to land some good hits, but in the end I just fainted 3 times and it was over. Okay, I thought, I need better armor, I need better equipment. So what do? We go for an expedition. There I could hunt 1 monster at a time and be chill about it. Anyways, that didn't work very well either, because the first monster we met was this pristine gentleman right here. Everyone who played Monster Hunter World knows how frustrating he is. And boy oh boy, it's even worse when your armor isn't made for that level. For those who don't know the Basal Goose, it's basically a living bomber. He throws bombs that go up and he can basically throw them with every attack. He can throw them while just moving. And now comes the best part. He had the damage aura. Well, it didn't deal direct damage, but it would poison me. And it would poison a lot. So basically taking an antidote wouldn't help much, but I had to take it because I would die otherwise. Speaking of dying, I died a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And you know what I get for that excruciating experience? Nothing. I didn't get anything. Because just seconds before defeating him, he just left the area. Bye. So I basically sat there for 20 minutes, dying over and over again, just to get nothing. So yeah, what a great start into the second half of the base game. So obviously, we had to come up with a new plan. First up, I took a look at the armor sets that were available to me. And I found really nice leggings that would give me non-elemental boost, which is an ability that boosts all weapons that don't have elements on them. Lucky for us, our greatsword doesn't have any elemental damage on it. Next up, I wanted to make a charm to increase my critical strike chance. I found the Stealth Charm 1, which would give us critical eye 1. It isn't much, but for starters, I'll take it. The only thing we had to do for that was to kill a Great Jagras. So I took on an investigation and started up the mission. I wandered around for a bit and couldn't find any trace of the Great Jagras, but I found a Poke who went down really fast, as well as a Toby who did the same. And I have to mention, it is low rank, so of course they did. Anyways, after running around a bit more, I couldn't find the assigned monster. So I restarted the mission, finally found him, and slayed him really quickly. I want to show you the whole fight, because it's literally just seconds. Of course, in low rank with the weakest monster in the game, it was to be expected, but I think there's something really funny about the fact that he couldn't move at all. He just laid there and didn't do anything. Anyways, with that out of the way, we finally could make our first charm. But I noticed something was really off about them, because every upgrade of the charm would give it a new ability. So basically any charm could in the end make a very, very good one. And I would never know, because I can't make all of the charms in a reasonable time. So upgrading charms is a really big gamble at this point. However, our next step would be to go on and find the tracks for the story mission, which I did off screen because it's not really interesting. And after doing so, we would get a new quest, which should turn out to be the hardest one yet by far. Because upon selecting the quest, we already saw that we had to fight a Teostra, which is one of the Elder Dragons and one of the high tier monsters in this game. However, our weapon was strong, so I was confident I'd be able to get him. But the Teostra on its own wasn't really the problem. I entered the mission and the first thing I saw was this. Yes, great. Another Basal Goose. The combination of the both of them was just terrifying. I'd get poisoned because of the aura of the Basal Goose. Of course, everywhere explosions went off. And the Teostra inflicted electric blight on me, which would get me stunned ever so often. The only thing helpful about this combination of monsters is that their explosions would hurt the other monster as well, which would stagger them or keep them distracted for a second. Nonetheless, I fainted 2 times until actually managing to defeat the Teostra when the Basal Goose left the area for a short period. Anyways, for the Basal Goose 0 out of 10, I just despised this monster so much. This again showed me that I really needed to upgrade my gear. So I looked out for a certain quest, which would reward a lot of money and also give upgrade material for our armor. And actually the quest was there. A quest where you had to fight 5 Mo Swines. The catch is that they one-hit you. Of course, they are really weak monsters in general. They can't take a lot of damage and they aren't really aggressive and fast, but just one hit was enough to get you. Also, they were scaled up a lot, so their hitboxes were much larger. And the cherry on top is that there are only 4 in the beginning and the 5th one comes when defeating the 4 first ones. And as you can see, the 5th one is just way larger than all of the ones before. Also, he wouldn't get staggered as fast, so it'd be kind of dangerous to fight, especially when using a greatsword. Fainting in this quest really isn't a shame. It's really hard. And in the end I completed it 2 times, which led me to about 100k. And for that money we could buy an even stronger weapon than we had now. A 1200 250 blast greatsword. And also it has 3 gem slots. A nice defense boost as well, and 0% affinity, which is great because most weapons with high damage in this mod seem to have low affinity or negative affinity. So I'm really okay with 0%. Now, sadly, the footage of the next 2 quests is corrupted. So I won't be able to show you most of what happened. I'll just briefly summarize it. The first assignment was to hunt an Azure Rathalos. The fight went pretty okay. I fainted 2 times, but in the end managed to defeat him rather quickly. The second assignment was just to spot 3 monsters in the Elder's Recess. I didn't have to, but I decided to slay the Dodo Gamma just for the materials, and he's such an easy monster. And that's all what happened in the corrupted footage. After that incident, the next quest was to hunt a pink Rathian, which wasn't a problem at all. He didn't have any of the damage aura stuff, he didn't have any significant elemental damages, and for some reason I absolutely demolished this monster with everything I had. The fight still took some time, but in comparison to the Nergigante that should have been here, it was really fast. The fight ended like it went, with a huge kaboom, and I just felt very confident in this fight. I didn't get hit often, and always landed perfectly timed hits. The next assignment would be to hunt a lava scythe, which in my opinion is the most balanced fight so far. Until now, every fight has been an absolute slaughter, either for the monsters or for me. But this one was different. The lava scythe took a decent amount of damage even with our overpowered weapon. It didn't have any life-threatening effects like the poison aura or a damage aura, but it still was able to hit me for huge chunks of damage when I wouldn't evade correctly. It had a very hardened skin, so my weapon would bounce off ever so often. This required me to either soften its skin with a clutch claw attack or break his parts. Its most dangerous attack were definitely its fireballs. It could shoot them quickly or a charged big one, which would basically one-hit me. Most of its other attacks weren't really a concern for me, as they didn't deal much damage or just were very slow. The best tactic, so I felt, was to pick up crystal ammo for your slingshot and use it while in the attack with the greatsword. This would stagger the monster and basically guarantee a hit with the strongest attack of the greatsword. It went down without me fainting once, and as I said, I was very satisfied with this fight. It just felt really balanced in comparison to most of this mod, which I don't say is bad. It's a lot of fun to have these chaotic fights where you either stomp the monster insanely hard or you just struggle like you've never struggled before.
Spectacular! I won't soon see another hunt like that.
After about 1 hour of gathering more tracks, the last 2 quests before the end boss of the main game of Monster Hunter World wanted to be tackled. The first assignment, when not randomized, is the Koshala Daora. The lead up to the fight is really spectacular. You have this cutscene with wind and shards blowing all around you and hitting you. But here, the model was once again replaced with the monster you would face in all actuality that was randomized in. Pretty anticlimactic when you see the great gyros hovering in the air above you, but also absolutely worth it as it looks insanely funny. I can't say it beats the Great Jagras fighter jet of the last episode though. Anyways, the fight was very easy of course, but I still want to show it to you in its entirety, as I played so bad it was just the absolute opposite of the fight against the Pink Rathian.
To disagree right now.
If you get injured, fall back and wait for the next chance. Stupidity is not something I tolerate.
Like there's anything that you do tolerate. We got it, loud and clear.
As you can see, a pretty messy fight. You can go on and make fun in the comments of me now. The good thing is that the next fight wouldn't be as bad. Here we have another animation where the model is replaced by the monster we will face. And it was a Toby. In comparison to the Valhazak, pretty underwhelming as well. But he wasn't as easy as the Great Gyros. Mainly because of course the Toby is very fast and also its damage was really great. Many of its attacks would straight up almost one-shot me and basically all of them put me at least at half life. Combined with the fact that he could stun me really quickly due to its ability to apply the electric status effect and its ability to also apply the fire status effect made him pretty dangerous. Basically, if I would have been stunned once, it would be over instantaneously, as the fire effect would just burn me down while I'm stunned. Luckily, that didn't happen, and the fight went smoother than the one before.
We hope you don't mind us stepping.
Now that we got those two out of the way, we can finally move on to the end boss of Monster Hunter World. And this mission started fantastically. The introduction animation of the Xeno is just insanely cool. But I was afraid at first that it wasn't randomized, as the normal model of the Xeno was shown in the cutscene. But in the next shot, it wasn't. It was this light blue shining orb that was obviously a way smaller monster that was kind of stretched and bended to the likes of Xeno'jiiva's proportions. Turns out it was a Kareen, which we encountered before in the first episode. In that fight, the Kareen was really easy to defeat. It basically fell over pretty fast, didn't deal damage, and just wasn't aggressive at all. But here it was way different. It may not have been taken as long as the Xeno would have, but this monster put up a fight. The damage it dealt was huge. It wouldn't one-shot me if I ate before I started up the mission, which I didn't because I always forget. So the first thing that happened into the fight is that I got one-shot. Anyways, after returning, the Kareen was aggravated the entire time. It constantly jumped around the battlefield and didn't leave me many openings. I could only attack when it would perform a move itself, and even then I couldn't really pull any great combos. The windows were just too narrow. Even worse was the fact that there wasn't any slinger ammo laying around this arena, which especially for me, if you watch closely, is a big problem, as this is the main resource I use while fighting because it makes the greatsword combo so much faster. But in the end I only fainted one time and defeated the last boss of the base game of Monster Hunter World.
Pard, you okay? Hey, Pard!
Actually, the start into the Iceborne DLC was pretty rough, because we ran into an enemy that was bugged. See, the first mission was already randomized in a very weird way. Not only was the monster we had to hunt randomized, but also the area. And the area we had to go to was the end boss arena of the Iceborne DLC. So where you'd normally fight the Shara Ishvalda. Somehow that bugged out the monster there, which was a Rathalos. If you've seen the episodes from before, you already know that this Rathalos is pretty tough, because it has a damage aura that also applies the dragon status effect. This in itself might have been manageable, but it turned out that this monster was actually not killable. So for the first time in this playthrough, I had to reset the randomizer. After I did that, I first checked the shops of the game, because they are randomized too, and so are the prices. which in the end led to an infinite source of money because there were items that were sold for less than you could sell them back. And for the money I got by abusing that, I bought a lot of new weapons to try them out and maybe find something new for this run. In the next mission we had to face a gold Rathian who decided to piss on me. That's probably the reason why he's gold. It's a piss dragon. Anyways, he turned out to be pretty tough, because in this case it had 2 damage auras. The first being way more prominent, which would apply poison status effect. The second wouldn't occur as much, but it still was very annoying. And of course it had to have a status effect as well. We were confronted with Water Blight. First I tried it with a switch axe, but I quickly noticed that I was really rusty with that weapon. So I switched over to the hammer, which I use way more frequently. It turned out to be better, but still the fight was really hard, and I decided to go back and look through the weapon options I had in the shop. And this was when I noticed something. The bowguns had elements on them, which in the base game just doesn't occur. For a good reason. The multitudes of ammunition you can use would just be way too overpowered if it also was able to apply status effects or use extra elemental damage. So of course I had to use it, because the monsters were so OP, I had to get OP myself. I picked up a heavy bowgun with blast on it. I was also able to use the spread 3 ammunition on that. And just to put that into perspective, spread 3 hits about 10 times I think. And every hit of that applies the status effect of blast. So basically only like 3 to 4 shots and blast would proc. To call that overpowered is an absolute understatement. At this point I didn't have any resources to craft spread 3, so I had to buy it from the shop, and every time I ran out I had to go back to base and refill. But aside from that, the mission was over very quickly. This combination was just too good. In the next mission that would prove again, although it's not much of a proof against the Gyarotodus, because this monster is notoriously weak, which is why there's not much to say about it, except that it went down really fast. The next assignment would again be in the Shara arena. Well, not exactly, but the Ruin Nergi arena is practically the same as the Sharas. Of course I feared that again I wouldn't be able to kill this monster. And I was right, but in this case the arena didn't seem to be the problem, but the mission itself. I reset the randomizer multiple times, but it was always the same. The monster would always be bricked, it wouldn't move, and it wouldn't die. So I had to do this fight without the randomizer, which was just a Nagakuga, pretty normal fight. This is the reason why I started the randomizer run in the first place, because I wanted something new, and this was just, I knew it already. So I quickly ended that fight and reset the randomizer. And of course, every time we reset the randomizer, everything is rolled again. So the weapon stats of the weapons I have already are rolled as well. And of course, the shops, which really came in handy at this point, because I was able to buy the Fatalis armor, which is the best armor in the game. Also, almost the only thing that isn't randomized are the boni of sets, which is great because we are using the heavy bowgun, and the bonus of the Fatalis armor is actually the ability of true spare shot, which now and then causes you to not lose ammunition when shooting. Also, our heavy bowgun rolled into something really interesting. I was able to almost use every ammunition there is, and also it had poison on it, which applied so rapidly fast as we would see in the next mission. The next assignment wasn't a problem. It was just against the Rathian. And as I said, the poison was insane. After just 2 to 3 shots with the spread 3 ammo, the poison would apply. It would then deal its damage, lose effect, and apply instantly again. This made for some great DPS. And of course a very fast mission.
That does it for this mission. Let's head back to base.
What comes next are 3 fights that don't bear much significance. And also I forgot to record them, so whatever. It were basically 2 Tigrex, which were a lot of fun, and an Ebony Odogaron, which was no fun at all. The normal Odogaron is pretty much fine, I think, but the Ebony one is just absolutely annoying. Anyways, this would be nothing compared to the next assignment, which yet again was a Rathalos. In this playthrough, every time we met one of those, it was an insanely hard fight or just very annoying. Of course, Iceborne started off with a bugged one, and now we have another that isn't bugged. Also in the arena of the Elatrion fight, which once again has a damage aura. This time the aura is arguably worse than before. Before it was Dragon Blight, which is annoying, especially when my overpowered weapon relies on its element to be as overpowered. But Rathalos is rather resistant to poison anyway, so this wouldn't have mattered as much. What did though is that the aura was fire damage, so getting stunned was practically a death sentence. When I first entered the arena, I was shocked to see that there are 3 monsters in total, but honestly the other 2 were more helpful than anything. They would distract the Rathalos, deal some damage and stun him occasionally, and stuns were very, very important. I practically couldn't go near the Rathalos because of the aura, of course, so I had to have him lay on the ground and not move so I wouldn't get damaged. Of course I had long-range projectiles with my heavy bowgun, but the real deal is still the spread ammo, for which you have to get somewhat close to the monster. In this fight I mainly used sticky ammo to deal any sort of damage and try to stun. I didn't have many materials to craft the ammunition though, so I had to get back to camp once in a while to refill. Lucky for me, the arena was just big enough for the monsters to occasionally lose their aggro, which would then allow me to fast travel back to camp. This cycle of fighting and going back to camp and fighting again went on for about half an hour until I finally managed to defeat the Rathalos. it honestly wasn't even an interesting fight. It just took a very, very long time and was quite annoying. But what should follow was even worse. The next assignment was an arena quest where I had to hunt a Lunastra. And by now I know in arena quests there are always 3 monsters there. So a Lunastra with 2 additional monsters would be pretty hard. And the first thing I see when I get in there are 2 Tigrex, but not normal ones, brute Tigrexes, which are way stronger than the normal ones. In the first couple of seconds I got in there, I thought, oh, this will take a long time and maybe a couple of attempts. But then my savior arrived in the form of a bricked monster. Lunastra was once again not killable, didn't move and didn't attack. So of course, the randomizer had to be reset again. I quickly took on the normal quest, which was just a Vulgar Anjanath. Also a little side note here, I feel like the randomizer makes the game way harder, as this fight was pretty easy and was by far faster than all of the randomized ones. Anyways, after then resetting the randomizer, I found a pretty funny thing and I want you to guess what I changed here. Yes, that's right, you can also randomize the size of the monsters. Look at him, he's so cute, tiny little Baroth. I love this so much. Also, I got a lot of new weapons, just tried around with some. Got a pretty good new heavy bowgun which applies sleep, which is insane by the way. Basically monsters can't even move, it seems like absolutely overpowered. And of course the Baroth isn't a strong monster, so the fight was over pretty quickly. But that's not the only tiny monsters we meet here. In the next assignment there was a tiny ebony Odogaron. And I know previously I kind of said I didn't like this monster, but when he's tiny I think he's way more likable. But this was not at all the highlight of this mission. The highlight was definitely the tiny Basal Goose who joined the fight. I got to say, I hate this monster otherwise, but you can't tell me that this isn't cute. He's just so tiny, he doesn't even fly very high, and then his screeches are also so much more high-pitched. This was so much fun, they were so cute and I love it. I love it that they can get so tiny. Even though I was able to buy the Fatalis hammer, which is the strongest hammer in the game. Actually, the small size of the monsters made it kind of hard to fight against them. Missing them was pretty easy, and also their attacks were very small, and many attacks of them you can't quite guess from their telegraphing because you just can't see it. They are too small. And they do deal regular damage. Also, you can't bounce them into a wall because their movement speed is tied to their size. So if you want to try and bounce them into a wall, you really have to get close with the monster to the wall to even reach it. But the fight was definitely not as annoying as the normal Ebony Odogaron, just because it was so much fun that they were so tiny. The theme of tiny monsters would persist with the next assignment. And honestly, I couldn't have been luckier. Look at this teeny tiny black Diablos. It's so cute and I'm just having fun with these teeny tiny monsters. At this point, I quickly want to say how that even works. Use settings to set maximum and minimum size in percentage of normal monsters. what I did here was 20% as minimum and 150% as maximum. So basically they could get as little as 20% of the original size or as big as 150%. Anyways, the fight against the Black Diablos was pretty easy. The weapon we have right now is just absolutely overpowered. The sleep status effect makes most monsters pretty easy to defeat. It applies so fast and you just can land attack after attack. They go to sleep again, they stumble, they go to sleep again. You have so many opportunities to deal damage here. So the fight was over very quickly. And because this heavy bowgun felt so overpowered, I wanted to go back to the greatsword for once. And I got to say, it still is a lot of fun. I loved the greatsword, it's probably my favorite weapon in Monster Hunter World. But exactly when I picked that up again, I had to go against a formidable opponent. We yet again faced another T-Rex, but in this cycle, in this new randomization, he had a lot of status effects. Dragonblight, which wasn't a problem really. On greatswords the elemental damage isn't really important anyways, which I actually learned from a comment from one of the previous episodes, so thank you for telling me such nice fun facts. Anyways, the hardest part of this fight was the fact that the T-Rex could apply Blast, which basically procced instantaneously when he would hit you with one of his combos. This had potential to basically one-shot me. In the end I didn't faint once, luckily, but still, this fight was memorable and pretty hard. After that, you have to gather a lot of tracks once again. Anyways, the next monster would be yet again a teeny tiny version of the Xenogre. And actually the fact that he was so small was very hard to deal with here. You basically can't see his lightning strike attacks. And of course all of the things I've mentioned before also applies to him. You can miss very easily and you really don't see what's coming. So the fight was quite challenging. And the reason that I yet again pulled out the big guns in form of our sleep-heavy bowgun, which of course made quick work of this thing. But not as quick as before, as I couldn't apply sleep due to the dragon status effect that the Xenogre would apply. After switching to the bowgun though, it was still a rather quick fight. After some more track gathering, we now had to fight a screeching Legiana, which was quite annoying because it had yet again a damage aura. And really unlucky for me here, it was Dragonblight. So of course proccing sleep was very hard. In my first attempt here, I didn't really play good against him. I kind of feared to feint and kept my distance most of the time just to avoid damage. In the end, when it was almost dead, I tried to capture it, but this mission, when it's not randomized, is an Elder Dragon and you can't capture these. So capturing the monster here will result in the quest failing. Also, it was the only capture I attempted in this playthrough, which really made me furious. I then tried again and just blasted through this monster. Also, somehow he got smaller on the second attempt. I don't know why, but I feel like he got smaller. Anyways, this fight was clean. In the second attempt, I just absolutely demolished this Legiana. Basically rage-fueled, I stayed close to him and just gave him everything I got, which led to a very, very quick fight. Even quicker than all of the ones we had in the DLC so far. And also, it was a lot of fun. An absolutely great fight, but nothing compared to what comes next. The next mission wouldn't be the real end boss of Iceborne, but in this case, it absolutely is. I won't even say anything about it. This fight was so epic, it was insane, it had everything. Action, drama, everything you could want from a good Monster Hunter fight. Just look for yourself. What an insane finale to this great journey. A fight for the ages, a fight I would have never expected, a fight you will tell your grandchildren about. Of course, after that, there was still another one, but it just was a Tobi Kadachi. He fell asleep all the time and I just killed him. There was not much to say about that. And that was the entirety of the Monster Hunter World Randomizer. I really hope you enjoyed this compilation, and if you did, please leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel. All of that helps me out quite a lot. So thank you a lot if you did, and I'll be seeing you in the next time. Have a great day.